Hey guys, Tiffany Dean Cosplay here, and today's video I will show you how I created Aloy's spear from Horizon Forbidden West, which is this one here. It's huge, as you can tell. Now this one is a 3D printed prop, and I am very mindful of the fact that not everybody has a 3D printer or has access to one. So I will post a link to a friend's video where he has actually combined 3D elements with more old school kind of elements, especially for the hardest part, namely this twisted central piece here. So I will post a link to that in the description below. Just so for those who don't have a 3D printer or access to a 3D printer or 3D printing services, hopefully that will be somewhat helpful for you. So I do apologize to those who can't 3D print, as that's what this prop is this time. But for those who do, I hope it's helpful for you. The file was actually gifted to me by 3Demon 3D Print, so a huge thank you to them for letting me have a crack at printing it and seeing how it all came together and everything. And yeah, even if you don't have a 3D printer, hopefully you still enjoy watching the creation process and how it's all done. So enjoy! So the first thing that I did with the file was pop all of the pieces into Cura. I had all the settings set how I liked. I orientated them how I thought would be most efficient, and then I popped them in a USB and started printing. I have a Creality CR10, so it's getting a pretty old printer now, but it does a job. This is just the printing of that twisted central piece of the spear. Then after that, it was just a case of gluing pieces together that could go together before I needed painting. In this case, it's just the blade that you can see here, and I just glued the pieces together with super glue. The file does come with little dowels. That's what those are. You could use wooden dowels if you like, which I actually would recommend because the cats got to mine and the printed dowels unfortunately snapped. So I would 100% get wooden dowels or like metal ones if you can. So I'm still just gluing pieces together here, just little bits that can all be pre-assembled and do not require painting before gluing. So just always be mindful when you're printing something what pieces you can stick together before doing any paint and prep work. So this is a top bit of the spear at the moment, and then that's like a wood filler thing, and that's what I use to fill. You could use foam clay, you could use depending what you print in. I've been printing in PLA, but if you print I think in ABS, you can create your little goop. But yeah, I just use a wood filler. I sand it, then I'm using a spray putty from a vehicle shop, and pretty much I just spray that, I sand it, I spray it, I sand it, I spray it, sand it, you know, rinse, repeat until I get to the wet sanding stage, just to get it as smooth as possible and to fill in all those print lines. So that's sanded, and as always I'm going in with my trusty black base coat of paint. This is just straight up acrylic paint, nothing fancy, nothing special. Get into all the little nooks and crannies because there's a lot of them on this one. So as you can see, I'm painting bits before I've actually done any further assembling, because a lot of these pieces, when it's assembled, you will not be able to access. That is why they need pre-painting. But just be mindful, if you are pre-painting pieces, they may require a little bit of sanding again to fit together, because painting will add a layer which will add thickness, which will then mean some pieces might not be perfectly aligned. Just keep that in mind. And I try to paint all pieces that require the same color at the same time, just so I'm not constantly getting all these different paints out. So as you can see, I'm painting everything that needs silver right now. Sometimes you may have to do a couple of coats of the paint just to get the depth of color that you would like. So now I'm going in and painting the gold details. This took a few attempts to get the right shade. Here I'm actually just using a leather paint by Angelus at the moment, but that was a little bit too pale and pearly, so I did go over with like a more of a copper tinged gold, but this is still a good base to help achieve the final color. So yeah, I'm painting everything that needed like a gold or a yellow tone. I was painting now. So you can see this is, I think that's like a hobby paint. I don't know, I think it's our old hobby paints from like plastic toys that you build. And here I'm going over with like a bright yellow because when I looked at the artwork that actually looks yellow, not gold. These are just acrylic paints. And then this was that big orange bit. This took a fair few coats. There's the orange that I had, as you can see, is super wishy-washy. So I did go over and coat this a few more times. And always make sure your base coat's dry before you do second coat, or else it will just move your lower coat. Here I'm using a clear coat. I use a Tamiya acrylic paints just in the clear for a good clear coat. And all the white bits I did weather, as you can see here, with the black paint, just so they don't look too new and fancy, and everything in the Horizon world is kind of weathered. A lot of the machine parts are getting old, and it just adds a bit of depth and dimension. So now I'm assembling more pieces again. So I've assembled pieces onto the blade, pieces at the back, and just, this isn't glued down here, it's just a rough check to see how everything goes together and make sure I'm on the right track. This is a weird little rubber tubing kind of thing, which was fairly close to the color I needed, but it needed to be more gold. So I painted that with a leather paint because it sticks to like rubbery things. Then I glued it on the end after weaving it through the little loopy bits there. It didn't bend as much as I liked. It kind of folded more. So if you can find like a different thing, maybe even foam or something, this is just what I had. So I popped that through and I actually just glued each high point to help it stick where it needed to go. And I'm back to gluing more pieces together. As you can see, I added some string to that part because I wouldn't be able to access it very easily once it was glued together. So I'm just gluing the bulk of the pieces together. As you can see here, that white bit has been placed in because it needed to be, and that's now all been glued down. Again, I've just used super glue. You can use like an epoxy, like a two-part epoxy. Now here I'm just adding the detail. So I've added some red fabric. I've got some blue satin, which I've just folded over at the edges, and I'm just gluing that down with super glue. So I'm just putting little dots here and there. Not too much because you don't want it to really soak through the fabric too much. You could use contact cement here again. You could use an epoxy glue. I just find super glue is quick, easy, and it worked. So for the jute cord kind of stuff, you can see plaited on the spear already. This is how I made it. So I cut 3 strips of it and I've knotted it at one end and I've just plaited it to then create a thicker rope kind of looking thing. So I'm just plaiting away, and then again I just dab it with the super glue and I start wrapping it around, pulling it nice and tight, and then just gluing it down with the super glue in a couple of places and at the end. And then more blue satin. Now this is with the bulk of those little details added. And now you're back to more. There's a lot of cool little details on this which I really like. So this is just more of the blue satin again. And as you can see, the super glue does seep through a little bit. That's why I try to keep it kind of minimal. And that's another reason why the satin's folded over as well, just to help with that bleed through a little bit. Then I got some feathers just from my local craft store. I used a Sharpie to create the black lines on them, and I just whacked some glue on the end and slotted them in as best as I could. I added any more little details, and that is how the spear looks. And this is just a little showcase of me holding it. I obviously was not gonna throw it because I don't want to break it because I like it, even though the cat's broke it for me. But yeah. Thank you so much for watching. I hope the video was helpful or at least interesting for some of you, and maybe perhaps gave some of you an insight into how 3D printing works. If you're on the fence about buying a 3D printer, hopefully that sways you in either direction. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't played Horizon Forbidden West and you do have a PlayStation 4 or 5, go out there and play it. It is an amazing game. Again, a huge shout out to 3D and 3D Print for giving me the amazing file. I'll pop a link in the description below as well, so you guys have access to that file should you wish to buy it. And yeah, as always, if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below. If you want, you can like and subscribe to my channel if you want. It's cool if not, no bad feelings. But yeah, until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye!